Silence breaks in the spring football community as the XFL USFL merger talks are on the goal line, they say. We'll talk about that as well as the USFL PA's reaction and its PFN award season. This is episode 72 of the USFL Podcast, and it starts right now.
1, 2, 3.
Welcome, everybody, into episode 72 of the USFL Podcast. I'm Zach Heilman in here alongside, of course, my good buddy, my good pal, the man in the ref shirt, the name going with the said person in the said shirt. It is Farmer Ref joining us, as always. I'm going to go with that. Well, he's got that glorious beard and mustache. But we're not going to talk about that right now. We will touch on some milestone he's hit. What we are going to say is, gear up. This episode has what you are waiting for, which is the next step in this whole merger process between our USFL and the coming XFL that is joining in to what might be that UFL discussion that is on the horizon from what it sounds like. We'll touch into several of the other details, of course, which there are few, but there are important few. That's the big difference or the differentiation in this discussion. However, I have to ask, my good man, how are you doing today? Big news to talk about, and again, I hinted, big milestone for your life. Let's talk about that.
So I'm officially over the hill. I'm old as dirt now. I'm 40-year-old ref. 40 years.
My God.
Didn't think I'd make it to this day. Funny enough, made it 40 years, making the same old mistakes. I don't know if anyone caught it. I'll probably mute it out. I bumped the mic with my hand. It's like I have never done this before, man, I feel, it might be a little bit of a late birthday surprise, but a birthday surprise nonetheless. It's the news that we, as well as many, have been waiting for. We have merger news. Like I said, we're going to dive into that. With merger news comes merger speculation. So we're jumping into speculation zone. Again, ref's favorite things. It's almost like a belated birthday episode. These are all the things that I wanted to talk about. And not to mention, it's the end of the year. It's rounding out. 2023 is coming to a close. So that means it's time for our annual this year in the USFL and XFL fan poll. We're coming to you to let your voices be heard. We're going over the best moments, the worst moments. We're going to get into the details, so stick around because we're going to depend on you to tell us what your favorite and worst moments of the year are, which we're going to announce December 29th on this flipping channel, which is another reason you need to be subscribed. It's USFL Podcast. It might be a new name, maybe limited time only, but it's important. Click the bell. It builds morale. For a birthday present for old daddy ref. Click the bell. Get some morale. You might need it. We're going to talk about it. I mean, we had all sorts of things to speculate over later in the episode. But anyway, I feel like I'm carving too much into it. We already told people to subscribe to the channel. You guys know where to get us on social. Enough of the nonsense. Let's give the people what they're waiting to hear.
Yes.
Let's jump into the news, Zachy boy.
Let's do that. Let's get into this whole thing. So earlier yesterday, as we were going to go with, as we're recording during the day, but yesterday, Thursday, November 30th, Ben Fisher of Sports Business Journal drops an official statement from the merged entity that is stating a few key pieces to this. I'm going to read over the entire statement for you, and then we'll kind of hit the main points. But here it is. We are pleased to have completed the antitrust review process in connection with the proposed merger of the XFL and USFL and intend to play a combined season this spring kicking off on Saturday, March 30th. We are now finalizing the terms of the definitive agreement, and we'll share more about the new league in the coming weeks. So first things first, two big things coming out of that statement. A, this thing is officially government approved. Yep. So bye-bye big government. Hello, business discussion. We are back on the business floor, if you will. The two entities are now in the room with each other going, all right, this is kosher. Let's talk what this is going to look like. And we'll dive into some of the speculative pieces that have come out today that we will be diving into. But facts right now, this is what we're going to focus on first, because as you may know, this merger has been quite chaotic in trying to find what is going on and what isn't. And things have been changing a lot, as we both very much know. So point one, they are talking still, and this thing is fully approved. Point two, March 30th is the opening week of this new entity. So what they did, they basically looked in between the two start dates and essentially picked one that's pretty in the middle. Funny. That's I'm curious what you think, because here's my thing I take is they say 50-50 entity. That's like the first sign of like 50-50 shared values. They're like, well, we don't want to start too late. And then you see Fox and them going, well, we don't want to start too early. Right. That's like the just right, like 3 Bears scenario or something where they pick the middle. March 30th, end of the month. Right. But not in April.
Well, to me, my first take on that is you skate around a little bit of March Madness by doing it at the end of the month. I mean, that was the thing that was, because I will be honest, I loved the February kickoff right after the Super Bowl. There's people, hey, it's just a way football's over. No, it isn't. It just ride it right on through. But then you hit that March Madness, and that's tough. That's tough. I mean, any sport would compete, let alone a newer venture. So, to me, it helps in that regards. The other piece of it, again, looking at the USFL's schedule from, the last 2 seasons, getting just, even if it's a couple weeks earlier start means you end a little bit earlier.
Exactly.
You don't have to compete with the 4th of July weekend, which, there's diehards, there's crazies like you and me. We're going.
Either way.
Some people, they got barbecues, they got families, they got something else going on. But the other thing, and I as one of few that was at the Spring League Mega Bowl in Houston, Texas, in July, 4th of July weekend for the Mega Bowl championship. Whew, it was hot. It was hot. So you kind of want to get those games done a little bit earlier. And now we'll get into the speculation zone on this a little bit later too, but we're assuming, this is just again assuming that this is an 8-team league. Let's say there's more than 8 teams in this. Starting a little bit earlier also allows for a longer runway if you need to have a longer season. Now, again, we're not in the speculation zone yet, so we're not going to jump into that yet. To me, I think it's fine. I think it's a nice medium. I think the fans of the XFL will be happy. I think the fans of the USFL will be happy. I mean, it's really only a 2-week difference for the USFL and month difference for the XFL, month and a half maybe.
Yeah, I mean they do delay. If we're talking like truly who gets the worst, like the more worst delay of it, it really is more like the XFL side of this. But I think so here's what my theory of that. First off, I agree with your talks on the heat and all that. The more we've done this, especially the 2 years of the USFL, like you hear a lot of folks from Birmingham especially talk about this, where they're like, guys, it gets hot. And it's like, okay, hey, I feel you. And they're like, no, you don't understand. It gets like hot, and I agree, it gets humid down there. And I've been in there in May, and I've been like, oh man, this is getting close. So like, I haven't been to any June games. I've heard the June games can get kind of
I can imagine
iffy if they're in the afternoon, and so like they've been wanting night games. But the part 2 is I feel like this is the best way to get a compromise on the player contract discussion and on the free agency discussion, because no matter what camp you talk to, they both have had different philosophies on how they want to get the season over with to then promote their players to the NFL. The XFL has been touting the early release. They can get into camps earlier. The USFL has been basically coming up to the threshold of where you're right into training camp. except their philosophy has more been how I've analyzed it, and we've analyzed it on the show, is that, hey, you're season ready. And that's been kind of some talks from scouts, is that they see guys that are still like athletically ready to go right out of the gate. Maybe they've been worn down, but they're out. This, I feel, is kind of that compromise where it's like, okay, we still get early release, but we're not going, we still want to have it where it's like we're avoiding entities about like March Madness, or like, we want to give a breathing room bit to the end of the season where we can build hype like the USFL tried to do. So fascinating. Already one sign of compromise there. What is not a compromise, and this is just by name only, I'm not saying this is 50-50. They are still sharing the shared entities talk. Russ Brandon is going to be the top executive of this venture. And that is, that one I think has made the most stir out of a lot of people. And part of it is because of the split in fan bases, not going to lie.
Sure, yeah.
But it does also make people kind of ask, like, hey, how will this league be run? Will we see more of the, I think, more the intricacies of like the XFL, where it's like they have certain things that they lean on, or will we get like some other execs below, as you've brought up outside of this show when we kind of pre-made, that will kind of balance out and maybe lower levels? Like, is Russ more of like the financial guy, or like the guy talking TV, or is he going to be doing like a mix of that in football? We don't know. The only thing that's mentioned in this that is that he is going to be the head guy in terms of executives on this entity's board, is how we know it.
Yep. Which, I mean, is a great sign. I mean, he knows his business stuff. Now, what I would love to see, because I think this is the big question that a lot of fans had out on the internet, is, hey, what about Moose? What about Moose, our good old El Presidente?
Or yesterday.
Now, what I would love to see, and this is not a hint of what is going to happen, what's not going to happen. This isn't based on anything I heard. This is purely me saying this is what I would love to see, is Russ Brandon comes in, takes care of the business ops side. Moose stays and retains the football ops side, right? Because I think we saw it in both United by Football. We saw it in person. Moose wasn't just a president or vice president of the league, depending on the year. He was out there getting his hands dirty. He was there loading up buses, unloading buses, doing inventory, running around in the back, and even found time to hang out at Summerstock too. So, I would love to see him stick around in a football ops position, because I think everybody's natural thought is, well, if Russ Brandon there, Moose is out. I wouldn't say that yet. The other one people will point out is, well, the pictures in Vegas, in DC, with the the XFL co-owners as well as Redbird and other Fox representatives. Oh, Moose wasn't there. Well, I mean, that to me, that doesn't necessarily mean anything. There's even a lot of fog around what those discussions were about. So that's not to say it's true or not true. I only put the warning out there of saying nothing's final until it comes from the USFL. We've seen it time and time again. I mean, case in point, we're going to get into it a little bit more in the speculation zone, but just to briefly touch on it, the scenario with the teams. We've heard everything from 16 teams, 12 teams, 10 teams, and 8 teams. And quite honestly, it's really hard to say. And now, to me, when I look at this statement, this is what stands out to me the most. And I feel like this could tell us exactly what's going on. It's this line. We are now finalizing terms of the definitive agreement, and we'll share more, blah, 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 blah. But the finalizing piece tells me that potentially, if you're worried about 8 teams, 12 teams, whatever teams, it feels like all of it's still on the table. The first roadblock is out of the way. The government approval, done. Check, bum, done, out of the way. Sayonara, sucker. Now, could it be 8? Could it be 12? Absolutely. Like I said, we'll dive into that into the speculation zone. But if you're worried about that, and maybe it is, maybe it isn't, I would say reserve judgment until the final statement is out. When is that coming? Well, in coming weeks. The
Yeah,
famous 2 more weeks, buddy.
Exactly.
So, and that's not to say it is 2 weeks either. So don't.
Arguably the most infamous quoted statement piece of any sports league is in the coming weeks. You'll just throw it in there. People go, oh, great. Well, ambiguous, but soonish is how it's looked at. But it's coming. Look, I think if you're going to focus on with the in the coming weeks portion and people asking when's the next stop on this journey, well, now they have to have everything ready by March 30th. The game time is March 30th. That is opening day. So you have to start considering the timeline of what is needed starting now, which as of today is the first day of December, by the way. Keep in mind. So you now have 4 months to get things in order. And I mean a full 4 months at this point. But still, you have 4 months. That is your timeline. So we're talking about, and we'll get into this in a bit, but we're talking about like even not all the stadiums are finalized. If we're talking like who's staying, who's going from this, from rumors that we've understood, there's training camps you got to finalize. You have to get the team set so you can get rosters ready. You have to adjust if, say, you've been selling season tickets and you have to revoke a certain market, which we don't know yet, but that is on the table because the USFL is advertising for all 4 of the hubs. The XFL has been advertising all markets for season tickets online. So there are pieces to this whole puzzle that they are finalizing right now, which, expecting how this is phrased, coming weeks, it's the beginning of December. You're going to know by the end of this month.
You would think.
If they're saying in the coming weeks, like usually that means like to me anywhere from 2 to 4. That's the end of the month.
Yeah, and I'll tell you. Let me just pull up the calendar right now. So Christmas is on a Monday. So I wouldn't doubt if we get it either the week of the 11th or the week of the 18th. I mean, that's my official guess. Guess, everybody, just before
I know.
Not you, Zach. I'm not worried about you holding it against me. No. I'm worried about everybody else.
I'm putting my own eye test on the line. You can call it reading between the lines, but look, we're the beginning of a month. Yeah. Coming weeks, I better expect this end of the month. You don't just crack it in the coming weeks and then say, oh, well, next month. No. In the coming months, then that's how we change it. It's a little different when you do it that way.
I have a feeling it's December. A feeling. Who knows?
I mean, we just turned the calendar the next month, and they drops it, and it's dropped officially a day before. I'm telling you, it's got to be this month. Plus, think about how the timeline goes. Training camp. We have to assume, it's coming within a month of that beginning of the season. We're talking again signings. We're talking again finalizing teams. Like, got to get that done.
Right.
I would think turn the calendar. All right, look, let's stop teasing you. We're gonna jump in. We got all the facts out of the way. The ones are certainly happening. Let's dive in. Is this speculation zone time? Is it, Stefan?
The answer is always yes. Let's do it.
It's time. Let's kick in to the speculation zone. Welcome into the speculation zone. Now we can dive and get a little more into the nitty gritty on some of our rumored aspects of this. And as you may know, if you are a viewer of this show or around the scene, rumors are quite the commodity these days.
Oh, they're ample.
We've had quite some fun following and discussing options and things that have been floating around the industry at length. So, bear with us. This is indeed speculative as we can go. But and I will say this again, since we've said it already, and he's already said it, the ref himself, nothing finalized or confirmed yet, because it has been, like I said, for 2 months now, it's been an up and down roller coaster of a lot of things. So this is the latest, is what has been coming out. And this is multiple places, by the way, that have said certain items. And I actually would love to have you, since you are, of course, PFN's main guy here, let's lead into these new rounds of what might be coming.
So, naturally, when there's more news coming out, we had heard, news around the mergers coming out. Sure enough, later in the day, as we just discussed, we had the Sports SBJ article come out basically stating, hey, look, it's cleared approval, which then has led to some other pieces of information coming out on now which we talked about a 12-team split not too long ago in the speculation zone. Now it seems like another potential option is an 8-team split. Now, this is what now, and again, I'm not 100% sold on this, but I'm gonna probably fight both sides of this battle because that's what I do best. But I have thoughts on it from a couple different angles. But this is, according to the latest sources, if you will, at least a potential option, an option that's on the table could see 5 XFL teams, which I have a thought on that, and 3 USFL teams, which I also have a thought on. If this turns out to be accurate, this is the list of cities that would be included. I mean, first and foremost, naturally, St. Louis, the Battlehawks. If you're a Battlehawks fan, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but I'd be shocked if the Battlehawks are going anywhere. We have Houston, which, again, according to this report, would be the Roughnecks. Now, again, if it's 5-3, maybe we do see a 4-4 split, and that does end up being the Gamblers all in. We'll have to see. I'm fine with it either way, either all in or rough them up. We all know I do have a little bit of an affinity to that Gamblers logo. I love the flippin' logo.
You can't lose all in. I know you can throw it on something else, but it doesn't have the same effect if you take away what makes sense with it.
Yeah.
It's gambling.
I know.
That's the thing. But I digress. Continue.
We also have Arlington, or will it be called Dallas next year? I don't know, but at least Arlington, so the Renegades. DC, again, another one like similar to St. Louis. You'd be silly to leave DC out of the mix.
Exactly.
San Antonio, they just had a fan engagement event yesterday for season ticket holders to come check out the new premium seating. So, they're clearly business as usual, and it seems like they'd be making the move. Birmingham, I mean, no duh. Michigan and Memphis. Now, here's kind of the caveat, because we've seen this 8-team kind of rumor make the rounds. It came out from a couple, I'd say, pretty official names. I know James Larson put it out, our dude.
Our own guy.
There's a few people that are out there talking about it. So, again, is it going to happen? I don't know. Does it have legs? Potentially. But so did the 12-team thing. Keep that in mind. Now, here's the caveat. Here's the piece that I haven't seen, other than maybe James, bring up while they're talking about the 8-team piece, is apparently, allegedly, if they do 8 teams in 2024, the idea would be to expand to 10 teams in 2025. Now, if I was to assume, my assumption is if they're going to expand to 2 teams, it'll be 2 teams that end up were cut in 2024, going into 2025 rather. Again, all speculation, nothing finalized.
Of course.
Couldn't happen. Now, I have so many thoughts. Before I get into that, I want to get your initial take. If it's an 8-team league, is it a total bummer? Is it good? Is it bad? Is it okay? And again, I'm going to fight both sides of this. So let me know, what is your initial thought?
Well, I mean, it really depends on what if it's 8, it's got to depend on what the stipulations are. And I think, as we'll go into with our next segment in a little bit, on what is the union's decision on this,
right.
Like, how do they view it? Because I mean, look, I'm going to go with today's been kind of, or today, yesterday, whatever you want to put it, as we're recording, it's been kind of wild last 24 hours. There's been, if you want to go into the roster discussion on this whole thing, which I think is one of the main aspects of this, if you're doing 8 teams, is the instant, oh my God, how many of these players and coaches get the axe, because we took 16 total teams and said, let's pick the best 8 and say the other 8 need to go and hit, as I've seen, as quote pause mode, or they just completely go to the wayside. And I don't know how that works, because I've also seen come across, depending where you look at, a rumor of 90 players being initial rostered. Now, I don't know how, again, all rumor, I have no idea how true that is, but say that was what is to happen, and they do that where it's like, say you stack the early season rosters and then you cut significantly down, like, okay, that kind of helps. But at the end of the day, the difference between 8 and the 12 is at least 12, you have less losses. 8's pretty damn significant. I mean, that's that's pushing I mean, it's easy 50%, and depending on what teams you cut, it's probably over 50% total personnel in terms of players, coaching staffs, and like others that were signed on that are going to be possibly going to the wayside. Possibly.
Right.
I have to be really critical or really specific here because of the fact that this is still being finalized. But no matter what situation, jobs will be lost. It is a merger. The hope is, and this is why I really, and I think others are really kind of on the 8, is because of this feels like the extreme solution rather than more of the compromising, let's keep as many true best markets as possible. Because like in this scenario, I already know folks that are going, dang, all those rumors about New Orleans, with the converted baseball stadium that we actually haven't even gotten to talk about, by the way. There's, USFL supposedly has had contact with folks in New Orleans about, and I forget the name, but it's a like United Soccer League, USL. Yeah. It's a USL stadium that's coming, and those talks. So who knows what happens with that? Or, what about Orlando? I know Guardians fans that would not be thrilled.
Sure. Oh no, our own Michael Lathrop, I'm sure.
But this is just how it goes.
Super
this
happy.
How it goes.
Yeah.
No, this is how it goes. But depending on how it went with, I guess, the government side of it, I don't know. Like, for example, thinking about this, in a merger, if you're the government entity fighting for the people, feel like somehow, some way, that the 10-team 2025 one that's come up, I feel like there's something to do with that, where it's like, okay, you can cut this much if this is indeed what it is with 8, but you better show growth. So you're not just sticking around, just doing that to stick around, and then nothing happens in the future or near future. And so very complex if this is the case.
Right.
If this is the case.
Exactly.
It's very complex.
Now, here was, and this is, again, speculation zone, but, it seems like with every one of these little rumors, there's always a little bit of truth that comes along with it if it doesn't end up coming out completely true itself. There always seems to be a little nugget of it that either got lost in translation via telephone game or whatever it might be. Now, what would be an interesting twist to this is if it's 8 cities and not 8 teams, because now we're not accounting for any hubs here, right? So let's say Houston is a city, but New Orleans is also playing there, or New Orleans is in Birmingham. And maybe we do still have 10 to 12 teams, but 8 cities. Again, this is not based off of anything I heard. We're just in the speculation zone. So I'd figure I'd bring it up as a potential option of what we might see. And again, maybe instead of 10 teams in 2025, it's really 10 locations in 2025 to then shed some of those hubs. And then by then you potentially have all your teams in cities, or maybe 2 that are still in a hub situation, right?
Also, I will say, just to comment on the hub thing, because I think that's another aspect of this. Everyone's wanting to see what happens with that. Are we truly going all or not? Because remember, there was inside the league back, it had to have been now October that I can think of, where that came out and they're talking,
6 and 6, right?
It'll be like, it was 6 and 6. You'd have hubs, but they would fly out half of them to cities, which seemed interesting in the regard where it's like, you're taking a true 50-50 split. We take the hubs, but that other 50 is, you follow the XFL's fly out method and you play. If it's 8, methinks, to put it that way, that this is very much, if it is this case, pushing, we need to be market only. We need to be there, and this probably comes from both sides, because if you think about it, both of them have their own angle on this. This isn't just like a one or the other talk, because while yes, the XFL was in all markets in technicality, remember, and this is something we've understood doing this show, in market is different when it comes to gameplay and when it comes to in community. And so if it's 8, this is where you see both sides going, like, oh, well, we were in these markets and we had better public perception in some circles for flying out to games. But if you're the USFL, you go, but we care about, or not saying this, the XFL doesn't, but the USFL going, but we've noticed that we can have more community impact if you go into the market. and do it fully. So maybe that's the other element. It's the two combines where it's going, if we really want to do this and have it where we get it all, it's almost like you have to cut fully down. I don't like that. Going to be honest, going to be laying that on here. If this comes to fruition, I'm like some others in our community, like some we've had the likes of like a James and Mike and like James Larson, Michael Mitchell's commented on this personally, where it's like, it's great, we're getting the merger, but if it is 8, that is the extreme solution. And you do have to it does make you go,
See,
could have had a little more.
Here's where Reffy Boy comes in and plays both sides of the aisle, though. What would you rather have? 16 teams move down to 8 teams, or 16 teams move down to no teams?
Oh, of course. I see what you're doing. Of course, the existing, the discussion on existence, which I agree.
Right?
You want it to exist. I would rather have the 8. I definitely would rather have the 8. It's a struggle though when you consider how much you have to cut.
Oh no, I get it.
I'm with you. Look, if we're going to be honest on this discussion, and this is the XFL side of the equation that'll understand this the most. We've talked USFL in the sake of, when people talk about hubs, because one side of this argument despises hubs for the fact that it doesn't feel as it feels a little soulless, quote unquote, for teams that aren't in the markets yet, and it doesn't engage them on TV as much. On the flip side of this, though, and this is where ours comes in, and I still believe this philosophy first and foremost, if we're really getting to nitty gritty, and I'm glad you're keeping me honest here, is that surviving and continuing and proving the concept to work and finding the best avenue for the concept to work does matter the most at the end of the day. Survivability is survivability and thriving. Thrivability, is that a thing? They're your best traits. I'll run with it. Thrivability is a word now if it's not.
Sign us up
for our show. So, yes, thank you for keeping me honest there, because I do care about this piece of the sport of football continuing on. So that does matter the most of all. But by golly, it's an extreme solution to keep that running, is how I look at it, and others have looked at it.
Can I further speculate? And this is now we're almost in 3 layers of speculation zone now, but let me...
So much speculation. We're in Inception, it does not have any claim to this speculation zone whatsoever.
We're about to get so deep right now. So let me speculate on why we might have 8 teams, which is something we're also speculating about even having 8 teams. But we'll say this. Let me say maybe a reason is more teams, more TV, longer schedule. So now we're talking about broadcast partners. We're bringing existing venue and stadium deals into the mix that all have to be altered. That, on surface value, on face value, everybody's like, 8 teams, 16 teams, how are you just going to cut half of them? Well, again, if you add 4 more teams, you can't have a 10-week season. I mean, you can, but then I don't know. There's something weird about that to me.
You would have, no matter what, you have to prioritize whoever your division or how the divisions are, which it would be 6 and 6. So then it kind of gets weird on, do you match up with everyone at least once and then you just make the others fill in? There's no 2 apiece anymore. So that is awkward. 8 does keep it clean. 10 would also eventually, if these rumors do persist, keep it clean on that. I understand if you do want to expand the schedule, it's not too crazy. It feels like 10's the baseline for any of these. I mean, shoot, man, even and different full thing. I don't want to dive in too heavy because you're not going to understand. Even the AFL is doing 10, and that's all I'm going to mention with the AFL, because if you set me off right now, it's going to be a very, very long episode, and everyone's going to tune out because they're going, what the hell is he talking about? So bail out. He knows. Yeah. He knows. We've talked about this. He knows exactly what's going on. Anyway.
It's madness everywhere you go in alt football.
Pulling my mind back. Stay back from the thoughts. Go back to what's important right now in this show. I don't know. I don't have too much to add on except to this now. Just, it is speculative. It is still rumor. We have all I think across the board, and I'm saying across the board, is everybody who is reported or covered on this have learned in some capacity, you all have, is that only those top executives that were in that photo in DC know what the hell's going on.
And maybe like a select 2 or 3 beyond that. We get little nuggets. And honestly, and this is the thing you'll learn doing the things that we do. Sometimes those nuggets are very accurate. Sometimes they're not accurate at all. And there's many reasons why for both sides of it that I'm not going to get into here. But I would say, hold tight, everybody. One thing is for sure. We have another season of spring football on the way. It kicks off March 30th. What are the teams? What are the cities? We didn't even talk about what is the name. It feels like it's going to be the UFL, the United Football League, but
getting that vibe.
Maybe not because, there is that other alleged scam league. I'm not going to say scam league because then I could get sued. Alleged scam league that is using their name. Now, I would never say that they were, but people allege it quite frequently. So I'll say alleged.
I guess I allege it, but like, you know.
Have they played a game yet?
No.
Right? And they used to be the National Gridiron League, right? Is that what they were?
The formerly known National Gridiron League. Screw those guys. They haven't played a game at all.
They got a lot of, they allegedly got, I'm not even going to go there.
They allegedly have gotten a lot of money from tryouts. Allegedly have gotten a lot of money.
One thing that I can say without saying allegedly, that it was one of the craziest things I've ever seen in my time covering spring football is one of the players that allegedly got screwed out of money at one of their camps, and there was a fight with the owner. That was that was the good old days. Those were the good old days.
Fort Wayne, Indiana, baby.
And here we are.
I still had a good time with that. I still remember the conversations from people that were at that whole mess in interviews I did in the past.
See, that's what I'm saying. Everybody's out here worrying about the USFL and the XFL. I'm like, bro, you don't even know. This could have been the AAF, it could have been the MLFB, or it could have been the NGL or whatever that. Yeah, the National Gridiron League. Like,
God.
Are things perfect? No, and these things take time. But here's the real situation: since we've started covering this stuff, we've had spring football every year. Maybe little in the regards of the spring league, maybe partial seasons with the AAF, but now we're at the point that, hey, we have these leagues merging. If it has to be 8, will I be a little bit sad? Sure. Will I be happy that we have spring football? Hell yeah. And especially if we can get to 2025 and get 10 teams, because then it'll be the first 10, the first time we've had 10 teams in one of these spring leagues since the original USFL, which had, more than 10 teams, but either way, so again, these are the things to look forward to. And we don't even know if this is what's happening yet. In the coming weeks, we shall know. We shall know in the coming weeks.
My money's on end of December. I would gamble that if I had it. Not saying you should. I'm just saying if I had that option, I would, because I am feeling that confident just on the wording. What do I know? It's all about the little things, people. You look closely at the fine details, and that's how it sometimes is. These are rumors, and that's what we have to go with. But
it's one piece to end this off on.
Nonetheless,
one last piece to end this off on. So, when we originally jumped into the speculation zone, we started going over the breakdown 5 and 3. So that was the one I never really touched on. I maybe a little bit. But interestingly enough, John Vogel at Draft Vogel over on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it, he actually he's breaking it down as it is going to be 4 XFL, 4 USFL. Again, in the speculation zone, if it ends up being the 8 teams, with Houston retaining that gambler's name. Now, again, this is speculation zone. I will say this. I've said it before. I'll say it again. We all know the ref's all in. We all know. I'm so all in.
Of course.
I bought tickets to AEW All In London for 2024 because I'm just that much all in. But
he's gearing up.
But if it is the Roughnecks, ain't no shame in that game. We're roughing them up. I don't care. 12-0 at minimum in 2024. We're either going all in or we're roughing them up. Book it. Because Houston, I mean, we're winning that championship. If you want to win an easy bet, here's what you got to do. Gamblers or Roughnecks win. Book it 12 times in a row. Get that championship money. You're going to get so signed up. And then spring stock, if we can swing it here in Houston, we'll see. We have to see how this all plays out, see what the schedule looks like. But I'd love to put some swangers on the Refla and go all in.
Refla, baby.
And we'll see. Where at TDCU, Rice Stadium? I don't even know.
Hey, talk about the Refla, by the way. Isn't the Cybertruck first deliveries? Aren't those coming?
I gotta get it. I have a reservation. I've had it for like 3 years. So it's just a matter of time.
That's why I bring it up. That's why I'm asking. I saw this today.
It's just a matter of time. I need to make some money. But here's the thing. You know me, Zach. I'm a madman. I do the newsroom stuff. We do the podcast. I have a day job. And I also have like side hustles outside of like newsroom and everything else. And I'm not going to go into like super details, but boy, oh boy, I facilitated like one hell of a business deal recently. Now we'll see. Maybe that'll pay for the down payment on big old Cybertruck once it comes through. See, here's the thing with me. I don't need the tri-motor. I maybe the dual motor, but I think the dual motor is like $60K. I don't think I need a dual motor for $60K. I'm honestly,
look up the
I'm not
on this
driving up a mountain. I mean, there are no mountains in Texas. I mean, case in point, I ain't got it.
I know it's flatland.
I just want it because it looks like a flipping DeLorean, but a pickup truck. I think that's the coolest thing in the world. So I think the single motor is it will probably be a year or 2 years, maybe even 3 before my reservation number comes up, which is sad, but I am ready. Oh, I'm so ready. I can't wait.
You got time.
And here's the coolest feature of it. I know now we're getting all off topic. I can charge my Model 3 with my Cybertruck. That is
look at you.
That's the coolest thing ever.
Shared power, shared entities. It's merging together into one big Tesla item. I don't know. That's the best way I can
I'm ready.
Go into this. One last bit that is mentioned as of today as we exit the speculation zone now. Mm-hmm. Bye-bye. It was fun. Yep. This was quite the deep one. Like I said, so many layers. We're going to revisit with the USFL PA. We talked a little bit about this with the speculated 8 teams possibly that would be coming up in this new round of rumors. And well, the USFL PA has also been trying to keep up with this whole thing because keep in mind, whatever happens, they have to be involved in some way in terms of what they get to say. Now, still been talks about how involved that is, but they are clearly making their voice in the room, and they have clearly been trying to stay in the loop as much as possible with whatever executives have been discussing. So the USFLPA did release a statement on November 30th after the announced statement came out from Sports Business Journal, and here it goes as follows. Yesterday, league representatives informed the union that the USFL XFL proposed merger completed the antitrust review process with the Department of Justice. While an agreement to merge leagues has not been finalized, there has been significant progress in bargaining. Rest assured, the negotiating committee continues to work diligently towards agreement on key issues we received from player feedback, including group licensing and union successorship. It has been confirmed that the first game of the combined 2024 season will be Saturday, March 30th. The overwhelming consensus of the board of player reps is that we will continue to inform the player membership in real time based on information we have the liberty to openly discuss. Now, paragraph 2 does mention, of course, the group licensing, and that was something that was a big key aspect to when unionization was made in the USFL initially, was licensing your image and likeness. Now, the USFL has been open about this since the beginning. I think they're trying to get better understanding of the licensing terms and what they can and can't get, if I am interpreting the writings of the statement. Successorship is interesting because we know the turnover with these leagues. So I do think that is a great point, is how do you address union reps and their positions when representatives aren't always guaranteed to be in said union for a long time. So fascinating 2 key points coming out. But what we do see here is that they are very much trying to stay as close to at the same pace of what is going on as the executives in the boardrooms are too. Because keep in mind, this is half the equation of the player pool, but this is the only union in the two player pools. And these people, as we know, United Steelworkers, they want their people to have representation.
Right.
They are not going to be going, if they won't, I don't think they should go away lightly, by the way. And I think I want them around, but they are definitely going to be noisy in this whole process.
Sure.
They deserve to be.
Well, it's interesting too, and we're going to draw back to the history of all of this. You know, when this first came up to vote with the USFL, unanimous players unanimously voted it in. When it gets to the XFL, it lost. I was shocked, Zach.
Interesting nugget in the history of these two leagues,
right?
In the last year or so.
I thought for sure it would
something
be
to think about.
Unanimous as well. But now, maybe that was partially the reason. They knew maybe there was going to be, they were going to condense and it would come into play anyway. And why muddy the waters when it's going to have to be muddied anyway? Who knows? Again, now I feel like we're back at the speculation zone a little bit. But to your point, the good news is the union's not looking at this like, oh my God, this is spring football. They're in it. They want to be involved with whatever the new combined league is. They want to help represent the players. They want to help create benefits that makes both the league better and benefits for the players better. So, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a good thing. How will it play out? I'll be honest. I don't know what the legalities are. If the league is a new identity, does the existing contract with the USFL PA and the USFL and Fox continue over under a new identity? I don't know. That, you know, I'm not a lawyer. Maybe that we'll have to find one to ask. I bet you Seth Lessons would know. I might have to head over to Threads.
Would be curious. Yeah, he's still around.
No, he's
just
active. I know.
So.
One of these days, I'm going to convince him. I'm going to find him a football or something that he's looking for, and that'll get him on X.
Yeah.
You know?
That'll get him right there. Memorabilia.
Yeah.
Historical.
Seth Lessons, if you're watching, just go type a period on X so I know. And you know, the football world would go wild. They'll be like, oh my God, there he is. He posted a period.
He's back.
Yeah.
He's arrived.
So anyway, you know, all in all, is it a lot of news? No. Was it kind of expected? Yeah, I think they put out a statement when both the leagues announced they were intending to merge. So now that it cleared regulation, we have another statement. And quite honestly, I think we'll get one when in the coming weeks. When more details come out.
I know. In the coming weeks. It just kills me. I do want to revisit just last bit on this again, because I really do think the most fascinating part of whatever comes out of this. And again, I'm under my pretense that the union should stick around no matter what happens. I think it's good for the industry. By the way, I want them to be the union that represents the player base when this is all said and done. What I do find interesting is just future union discussion with the successorship, because it's something we didn't really think about as much when the union originally formed, you know, going in for last year, but it is something that doesn't get talked as much because, well, players do move on. So if you are a rep, like, you know, yes, you do have some of your benefits tied back, but representation, I feel like that is a good talking point to have, where it's like, how do we address this? Do we make someone as a liaison, say, you know, they're in the league for several years, that they can kind of, if they move on from football here, do they move up to this? Are they allowed to then have a seat as a permanent, like, say, union employee? I don't know how that all works. I have been out of, by the way, I did work construction. I've been out of a construction workers union for about 6-ish years now. So, you know, not 100% on how that would work with a new union, but that point to me, I do find fascinating, because if and when this union 9004 is involved with this new entity, I do want to see how they do this with continuing to build, like, say, veteran voices in the alternative scene, much like say a Kenneth Farrow, someone that, you know, he's been around the block. Now, if you have it merged, like, how do you get another, like, 2 or 3 Kenneth Farrows in your board to where they know they can be there and they can keep an impact going? And it's not just, well, I was a rep, now I'm out, you know, and yes, you want to focus on the dream, but say maybe they still had that good voice, and that, like, when their football journey is over, maybe they can come back. I don't know how that all operates, but I think that's the talk, is like, where can we find another Kenneth Farrow in this, that can step in and be that guy that's seen it all and can be in that room and have multiple minds like that to talk it over.
Right. Either way, exciting stuff. I mean, we're wrapping up the year. I think a lot of people thought we would have all this news already, but here we are. Thanksgiving's over. We're heading into Christmas, Hanukkah, whatever you celebrate in the New Year's.
Yeah.
And we have all sorts of stuff to talk about. And man, oh man, if March 30th is the date, which is what they said it is, as we've seen in the past years, it always has this slow creep, and then a nonstop onslaught of spring football news. So I have no doubt that 2024 is going to be an exciting year, whether you're a fan of the USFL or the XFL, because we head into the next year as one big, beautiful spring football family. Whether it's the UFL, the NSFL, or something completely different. The BBL, let's get signed up. I'm ready. And, on that same note,
never die, BBL. No, never die.
I'm bringing BBL signs to the games in Houston, pending that we do have games in Houston. Again, knock on wood. BBL will never die. I mean, if I get rich enough and I get to start my own spring football league, we already know the name. It's good. And we already know one of the teams, the Houston Swangers. Let's get signed up. So anyway, that kind of tees us up into our final subject here. We're rounding out the end of the year. If you've been a fan of the USFL podcast for a while now, whether it's last year, the year before, or even our previous entries, you'll know there's something that we do at Newsroom. It's an annual fan poll. We want to know, what are your favorite moments? What are the worst moments? What are your favorite teams, etc.? This year in the USFL and XFL 2023. Let's run through the different poll options, because here's what you can do right now. Right now, as we're talking, there's a link below down in the description. Or if you head over to PF Newsroom or ProFootballNewsroom.com, you will see a link to the poll. So first and foremost, we want to know, what's your favorite USFL team? What's your favorite XFL team? We're a big, beautiful family. We want to see what your favorite teams were going into this bad boy, and we're going to let you choose one for each league. Similarly, Coach of the Year from the USFL side, Coach of the Year from the XFL side. I know, Zach, you're voting for Mike Riley, so sign you up.
I'm totally voting for Mike Riley. That already's got my vote.
Give him Clearly. 4 quarterbacks to switch through. That's how Zach will vote for him twice.
If only this was 2022 Mike Riley. That's all I could say.
Now, I'll tell you this, Zach. Hey, let's say you have an option. Let's say you're really dead set on Mike Riley winning. This year, we're not limiting you to 1 vote. You get 1 vote per day. 1 vote per day. So if you're dead set.
Real passionate people coming out for this one. That's what we're getting.
You want the Vegas Vipers to win the favorite XFL team of 2023? Round up all your friends. Every day, go vote. Go vote and make it happen. But let's jump into some of the not so obvious options here. I don't think I need to explain the XFL teams or the USFL teams or the coaches. You guys should know them all. They're listed on the page just in case there was any worry or you didn't know. But here are the ones. So here's what we selected for the biggest moments of 2023. And we need you to help us decide what it is. Like I said, December 29th, that's when the results are going to be revealed on a very special episode of the USFL podcast, our This Year in the USFL and XFL podcast. First option up, Big E serving as the MC for the Michigan Panthers at Ford Field. Now, I, as a WWE fan, me as a spring football and USFL fan, and the Detroit in me loved seeing Ford Field get a little bit of extra special treatment with Big E there.
Oh, yes.
The second option up, I know this is one we've talked about numerous times since it happened. Some people might not know what we're talking about. I'll try to find a clip and maybe put a link down in the description. But Flip and Skip, their banter on the sidelines. I don't know if it's the sidelines per se, but
infield.
The pit,
it's infield
whatever,
in
yeah.
NASCAR.
At the Daytona 500. I mean, great banter all up. we got a pair of things coming out of DC, beer snake, and then separately the lemons. I'll be honest, I debated, should lemons belong in the worst moments? No, I don't think so.
No.
I think it was too fun.
They embraced that full heartedly. I think you have some uproar from any potential new DC folks coming in, but I also applaud you for separating them, because I think we could lump them in together, but I feel like that's a little too unfair because they both were part of the incredibly epic DC atmosphere. That's for sure. So for the fairness of the vote, I think this was the smart play, was splitting them up and saying, okay, which element do you prefer? The incredible beer snake that it made its epic return, or the newly founded lemon tradition that's going to be a normal thing probably moving forward in next year, if rumors hold, by the way. Don't want to be that guy. Also in that category, best moments, USFL expands hubs to Detroit and Canton, which, I mean, yeah, like no one I think was complaining about that. And for your sake, you get to go back to your own hometown. For my sake, it was a reason to visit family.
Right.
And I had a great experience at the Motor City meetup, not only for the folks we got to meet that are Michigan brethren in our own communities, but, just going to see my aunt and uncle, my grandmother.
Grandma Kyleman.
That opened up that. I have a little more personal side to that vote piece, by the way. So you might know what my vote is, just going to say. And then finally, Ray and Jaron Horton co-coaching the Maulers. That's a heartfelt family.
Wholesome.
Right there.
Wholesome moment.
Wholesome.
Yeah, if we had a wholesome moments one, that would win 100%. I might even be voting for Ray and Jaron over there, because Jaron, I mean, he's our boy. He's in the Discord.
Oh, yeah.
You never know what you're going to find
guy,
in the Discord.
I think our guy knows who he's voting for.
Oh, yeah. So now let's switch over to worst moments. Now, I'm not going to tip the scales, but I am going to say I think there's an obvious winner in here. I'm not going to say which one it is, but I will say the first option up is the Cashman Field conditions for the Vegas Vipers. That one, I mean, I'd say a contender. I don't know if we'll win. Second one up, Todd Haley. If you remember early on in the season, especially, there was a game that he lost 42-2. There was a couple sideline confrontations after the games. And I mean, if you want to include it in there, we could say and twerking. As the just Todd Haley confrontational moments. I know that the one with Skip was interesting, but the one that's more memorable to me is Curtis Johnson at the end going, "Oh, now hang on," trying to go follow up with him, and that one, those will live in my mind palace for a while, because that was an aesthetic of the Memphis experience last year as a whole, for a 500 record. Right. By the way. Right. Keep that all in mind. I feel like every time I talk, I steal your list back. So we're gonna keep jockeying your position. So you got Cashman, you got Todd Haley, Kurt Benkert injured in his first XFL game. That was also pretty sad. The amount of hype this man got from the league, from the fan base, only to get just completely railed on his first. It's a shame too, because there was speculation he was going to join the Roughnecks, and then something. They even announced it, and then something happened, and he stepped away. And then around near halfway through the season, the Brahmas were just having all sorts of trouble behind the rock. They bring in Benkert, which I was like, as a Roughnecks fan, I was like, great. They got our guy. They got our guy.
Huge social media following. People had been claiming for a while that he deserves a shot. Like the media storm was there. It stinks when you have the freaking balloon get popped right as you're enjoying it as well. And I'll let you do this next one. This is a little lesser, just because Stallions fans can go, "Oh yeah, that did happen."
Right.
Oh yeah, we got 2 championships now. So it's bad. Like, it sucks. We lost a star talent in the USFL from this, but you did also see the rise of Alex Magoo as a hero to the people.
Right. So I mean, naturally, we're talking about Jamar Smith, who was injured in the USFL opener for the Birmingham Stallions, again after throwing a bomb down the field, and it was like the first couple seconds they were on the field, boom, they scored.
He hit a solid. It was the first half. He had an incredible first half. Sans one bad interception, but he was looking great.
Yep,
that's the thing. He's been talking like he's ready to put in the work wherever he's gonna where Stallions hopefully go.
Right.
So I mean, that is almost. It's funny how you compare it with that and Kurtz, and that one's like the afterthought because yes, second ring coming very soon.
Right. Yeah. It's a little bit easier to take in knowing that you still got a championship at the end of it. Speaking of playoffs and championships, which leads us to our last potential worst moment of 2023. And I think this one might be a contender as well, just for the pure strength of the Battlehawks nation. But of course, we're talking about the Battlehawks missing the XFL playoffs with a record of 7-3. And
Unreal.
That stung. And the league was probably not too thrilled about that either, knowing that, God, if they could add a playoff game in St. Louis,
they could have indeed #filled the top.
Oh my God.
It would have filled. And that, I know Anthony Becht probably is kicking himself because he's like, we would have filled up our best audience of the year and hit 40K or 40K in that bad boy. So it's wild because we do, for full disclosure, you guys are like, well, what, these XFL things. Yes, we follow this league outside the show, but you just for full disclosure, if you weren't it's incredible that the North Division being how it is completely just was the top tier one. And then you have Houston coasting in the South, and Arlington comes out on top at 4-6. It's insane that season.
That's my worst moment of the year, actually, is the Roughnecks not going undefeated or the Gamblers.
The fall off for the Roughnecks was very. I wouldn't even call it dramatic. It was kind of like a whimper, but they did not do themselves service.
It's easy to forget Brandon Silvers was injured. And he didn't take much time off.
That is true.
I mean, people always forget that in these articles. People always forget to mention that Brandon Silvers was injured. Now, I will never forget that. I will never forget that Brandon Silvers was injured. I mean, I will call that out every moment. And now next year, I don't know who the quarterback's going to be, but I'll tell you this. I know what their record's going to be. 12-0 at minimum, all in, or rough them up, or both. We'll see. We will see. Now, this takes me to my favorite category, favorite fan engagement event, Zach. These are three of the biggest events in history, maybe. Last year, of course, three of the biggest, not including the season or the championship. I'd say these are the next three biggest events, maybe of all time in history of the world, but definitely in the 2023 season. We're talking about Spring Stock 2 in Birmingham and Memphis, 2-day event. People forget.
That's right.
We also had the Motor City Meetup, our mid-season fan engagement event, of course, in Detroit, Michigan, my beautiful hometown. And I'll still never get over that picture of us in front of the dumpster. The whole crowd. That was such a great, great, great picture. And, of course, we capped it all off at Summer Stock 2 in Canton, Ohio. We hit up all the hubs last season. Now, Spring Stock 2, people might not remember, we were stacked in the guest department, Zachy boy. We had MBT, we had Magoo, we had everybody. We had players from from both of the Birmingham hub teams. So we had the Breakers, Stallions players. We thought we were going to get 3 players out of it. We get there. We ended up getting 6 last minute. And I'll never forget the league for that one. I mean, sign them up. And to me, it's hard to say what my favorite is because I think about all that. And then I think about Summer Stock. Again, stacked in the guest department more from a community perspective, only to be topped off from the big man on campus, Moose Johnston, us having a chance to sit down with the president of the USFL at the championship game. So I don't know. We want to know what your favorite one is, but it's even hard for me. It's hard for me. So
yeah, I'm going to have a tough time putting in my vote. And keep in mind, a lot of this is thanks to the USFL just being how they were last year. Mm-hmm. That whole segment deserves a thank you. If no one in the league hasn't gotten that from us enough yet, reiterating that, because that is all we have gotten is the support you gave us for this, especially for the stock version, spring and summer stock, with meeting up with the players. Even Motor City Meetup, they send out social people to take photos of us getting together. That's just, it's freaking cool. So like that is really incredible engagement, and just kind of the way they worked with us this year. That stuff highlights that too. So no matter where the merger goes, thank you guys out there who watch this show as well. We know you guys do, because we appreciate you for what you do. And because of that, that's why, again, Spring Stock 3, no matter what the hell happens with this, is happening.
Oh, yeah.
Third year. And amazing that we're going to be saying that it is a third year. We're going to be kicking off the fan engagement cycle once more like that. So vote on your favorite. All three of them are going to be hard to vote on. If I had to lean a little bit, might be Summer Stock, because Daryl was very 50-50. Like compared to the Spring Stock interviews, like that was extreme 50-50. We weren't even 100% sure. To reiterate that was going to happen. So,
and we had such a killer location there too. We're right by the entrance. I mean, the security guy gave me a hard time a few times, and there was a couple things in between. But I mean, you know what? When it was showtime, we were ready to go. We may not have been ready until 5 minutes before, but nobody knew that until now. You know what I mean? No,
doesn't matter. What matters is the end product.
Exactly.
Because I mean, shoot, man, I could talk about how I do have certain temper.
Well, so do I. We all knew that one already, though. So yeah, hey, we want to know, what was your favorite event? Because we get it. Some of the folks weren't able to come in person, but there was a heck of a lot of people that watched online. So drop your votes down below. So we talked about best moments, worst moments, favorite fan engagement event, and now, of course, that leads us to the biggest moment of 2023.
Here we go.
We're just going to run down the list here. I'm topping it off with the USFL becoming the first spring football league in nearly 40 years to play and complete a second season. Now,
yes, sir.
Normally, I would say that's the shoo-in. That's getting it. There's nothing that can top that. But as you know, this has been one hell of a year, because beyond that, we have the XFL returning to the field for the first time since 2020, which we know the anticipation that has been there ever since that lowly day in March 2020, after the Houston Roughnecks definitively defeated the Seattle Dragons with no controversy. The league was put on hiatus to the illness we shall not name, and subsequently canceled, and then shuttered, and then bankruptcy, and then purchased, and then maybe talks with the CFL, and then the delay.
The dark times.
It was just such a long road. It finally happened. I mean, I was there at TDECU Stadium, loving life, finally being back at an XFL game. So again, two strong contenders right out of the gate. I don't know if you want to continue down the list here.
I most certainly will. Option 3, XFL hosts its first championship game since 2001. As we have hinted, the dark times. 2020 didn't end, so no playoffs. Ended mid-season. It's basically a 20-plus year gap between iterations of championship games, and it was a doozy. Again, upset or win. The Renegades pull off probably one of the most insane, I would say, insane turns 180s you can imagine in sports, and finishing as a under 500 team that got the championship against a juggernaut in DC. And it was a fun contest to boot. Definitely deserves the praise. And lastly on this list, for sure, and I think no one should be surprised at this whatsoever, the USFL XFL merger becomes official this year. And currently where we're at is, we at least can say that this moment has progressed to where we are now, that March 30th, that vision will come to light on week 1.
I mean, I have no idea what is going to win that one. It feels like the merger might have a little bit of an advantage just because it's more recent. But I mean, every one of these items in the biggest moments of 2023 category, to me, could be the biggest moment of the year. Again, running down the list again, I want everyone to think about this. The first spring football league in nearly 40 years to play a second season. That's huge.
That is monumental.
The XFL crawling back after highs and lows and delays and everything in between, but getting there, getting back on the field in all 8 cities. And then the championship and then the merger. I mean, blockbuster year all around, setting us up for what could be one hell of a 2024, and I'm looking forward to it, which kind of leaves us up to the last question. And this one, there's no options. This one is an open field. We want to hear
this in, man.
We want to hear what your thoughts are. What are you looking forward to from the USFL XFL merger? And we're going to pick the best options, and we're going to talk about them December 29th on a very special edition of the USFL Podcast, which may or may not have a new name by then. Maybe we'll be the UFL Podcast. Maybe we'll be the NSFL Podcast. And please, baby, please, maybe we'll be the BBL Podcast. Who knows?
Podcast.
Who flipping knows? But December 29th, that's the day that you need to remember. And I'll tell you what makes it real easy to remember. Subscribe, click the bell. It builds morale.
Builds morale, baby.
And it also lets you know when we're going live and when new videos drop. I don't know if we're going to go live this year. We'll have to figure that out. It depends on what our holiday schedules look like. But regardless, December 29th, that's when the video is coming out. That's when the results are coming out. So every day from now, in between then, you have one vote every day. So if you want, like I said, the Vegas Vipers to win the favorite XFL team of the year, get your buddies, get them there, get them voting one a day, get signed up. And December 29th, that's the big day when you're going to see the results. And I can't wait to talk about it.
Yeah, it should be a fun episode. I always like the end of the year ones. And it's kind of ceremonial too. Keep in mind, we started this show as kind of like really the prototype started 2 years ago on
it's like our pilot.
Late December. Yeah, exactly. On a late December's day to test the concept of, do we work as a group to make a show? And we do. And that's I think the best way to symbolize is, that same time frame, end of the year, that's a key moment for both you and I.
Yeah.
And I mean that, really is. It's been like I said, still early in the journey, but it's been a hell of a 2-year-ish journey.
Yeah. That's something that, I didn't even think about in there. Yeah. Not only is it our season finale, not only is it the results of this year in the USFL and XFL, it's really our 2-year anniversary, Zachy boy. I don't know what that is. Is that like the sandpaper anniversary? We have to figure. I don't know what 2 years is, but we'll figure it out. Maybe it's like graphite. I don't know, but we'll get an answer to that before December 29th.
Congrats, you found a way to keep talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God. Milestone, but no, it's just something to think about. But no, that'll be a fun show, guys. Next one will be great. And hey, like we said, news comes out. Honestly, we'll probably do a separate episode before, if it comes before that, we'll record before that. So one way or another, you're going to get at least one more this month, and it'll be fun times anyway. In the coming weeks is how it will be put. In the coming weeks, you'll get a new episode and new news along with it from this entity that is to be named officially. Any thoughts before we head on out? Any things left under the sofa that you need to pick back up and show off?
I don't think so. I think that was it. I think that's all we got for you this week. But hopefully next week we'll have a couple extra nuggets. If there's no major news, maybe we'll wait another week. But I would definitely envision we'll have at least one, maybe 2 more episodes before December 29th. And hey, if we're lucky, we'll have 3. I don't know. We'll have to see. I have a feeling we'll probably take Christmas week off. I don't know. What day is Christmas? Yeah. New Year's Eve. I don't know how many people are going to be looking at YouTube on Christmas Eve, so we might be taking that week off. Unless they're really crazy and Santa Claus is bringing us a present and drops that merger news on Christmas Eve. Who knows? We'll see.
Could be. That'd be a fun thing to get distracted by on my end. End of the month, I will be in Sedona with my family. So that will be, hey, guys over at the merger, cool. If you release it, it's cool, but realize I might be hiking
Yeah.
I just am like, several hours later, I'll come back, my phone blows up, and he's like, where are you at? Where are you at, Zach? We got to record, Zach. Zach. I had to take James, Zach. James had to step in. It's too late.
That's probably how it would go, too.
Sorry, you waited too long. I got Larson. It's okay.
Oh, boy. Well, we're getting there. We only have good times coming. Like I said, we don't know what the teams look like. We don't know what the names look like, but I'll tell you this much. I know we're going to be here to talk about it.
Soon enough, we'll know it all. But for now, we stay with what we've got. For myself, I'm Zach Kyleman. That is the Rev over there on the opposite side of the screen. Catch you next time for episode 73 of the USFL podcast. Drop in those votes. You'll know what's going to be all tallied up late this month for one of our next shows. Possibly our very next one. Possibly 2 shows from now. Or 3. You don't know. All you know is more USFL podcast, or soon to be different name, is coming in December. Until then, catch you next time, and stay classy, everybody. See you around.